The tallest girl sneered. Before he could answer, she slapped him across the face.
Glock! What it do, YouTube? It's your boy Jordan. Y'all already know what's going on. Peekaboo twin. Look, man. Told y'all we was gonna react to the four true celebrity stalker stories. Animated horror. Who is it by? IMR Scary Tales. I did subscribe to that channel. Yeah, it's kind of fine. The link to the original video is gonna be in the description down below. New skit is up. Go check it out. The skit channel is gonna be at the end. It's gonna be posted at the end of the video, like a little, what's it called? End title, end screen, something like that. It's gonna be somewhere around here. You know what I'm saying? Like, comment, subscribe. Let's go.
It started like any other glamorous evening. The air outside was freezing, thick with the unmistakable New Year's buzz. Inside the venue was alive with light and chatter. Emma Watson, the star of the night, looked every bit the icon, calm, radiant, and focused. Everything seemed perfect. The first time I saw him, he was just another face in the crowd, hanging back near the service doors. At first glance, he didn't stand out, but then I noticed his eyes. They didn't just follow Emma, they locked onto her, like she was the only person in the world. His clothes looked scruffy, his hair unkempt, and there was the strange stiffness and how he stood like he was forcing himself to stay still.
Doesn't that guy seem odd?
I whispered to one of the security guards. Over by the doors? The guard glanced over and nodded. I'll check him out. I watched as the guard approached him. The man didn't argue or resist. He just backed off into the crowd, his eyes still darting toward Emma when
How did he even get in? He don't look the part.
Whenever he thought no one was watching. I shook off the unease. These events always had a few overzealous fans. No big deal, right? Until the scraping started. I was by the dressing rooms, checking the final schedule, when I heard it. A faint metallic sound, like something sharp being dragged over metal. My stomach knotted. At first, I thought it was just one of the crew adjusting equipment. Then it came again. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. Heart pounding, I turned the corner toward the sound, and there he was. He was crouched at Emma's dressing room door, a thin piece of metal in his hand. A lockpick. But that wasn't all. His other hand was pressed against the door, fingers clawing at the wood, his nails scraping so hard that they were splintering and cracking. Blood dripped from his fingertips, smeared across the door like some...
Again, how did he get in? He don't look the part.
Grotesque message. I froze, watching in horror as one of his nails bent back completely, snapping off with a sickening crack. He didn't flinch. He didn't stop. Emma's my bride. We're gonna get married. Trust me, I'm not lying. He whispered, his voice shaking but determined.
Oi! What the hell are you doing?
I shouted. His head snapped up, his eyes wide and wild. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then he smiled. Not a normal smile. This was slow, twisted, as he'd been just caught doing something he was proud of. You don't get it, he said, his voice low and shaky. She's mine. She's always been mine. Before I could react, he lunged at the door, slamming his shoulder into it with a force that shook the frame. Inside, I heard Emma's panicked voice calling for security. I yelled for help, but he kept battering the door, each impact more frantic than the last, his bloody handprints smearing across the wood. When the security team arrived, they grabbed him and dragged him away. He thrashed and screamed, his voice echoing down the hallway. You can't keep us apart! She's mine! She's been waiting for me! Even as they hauled him off, he kept his eyes fixed on the...
You know what? I can't say too much, because that's how I feel about Ice Spice. I'm gonna edit that out.
Door, his grin unshaken. The sight of his bloodied, nailless fingers burned itself into my mind. I thought that was the end of it. Emma insisted on finishing the evening, her composure unbroken. But as we walked her to the car later, the air felt heavier and colder. Security swept the lot, giving the all clear, and Emma stepped into the car. Just as the door closed, one of the guards' radios crackled. "There's something by the back exit," a voice said, tight with tension. The team moved swiftly, and I followed, my stomach twisting. At the far end of the lot, near the service entrance, they found it. The door he'd been clawing at earlier, now splattered with fresh blood and scratched to splinters. Next to it lay a pile of Emma's photos.
My thing is, y'all folks just left her unattended at the limousine.
Torn from magazines, printed from the internet, all smeared with streaks of red, along with obscene and filthy desires and fantasies of him with Emma were written behind them. Above them was a note scrawled in what we could only assume was his own blood. "She is mine. You'll never stop me." Emma left that night under heavy protection, and the event organizers promised tighter security measures in the future, but no amount of assurances could ever erase what had happened. I still see his face in my nightmares, the lipstick smeared like a twisted mask, his words playing on a loop in my mind. Men like Chad don't stop. They find cracks to slip through and shadows to linger in, and even when they're gone, their presence stays behind, a dark stain that never quite fades.
You're laughing like a joker.
In September 2023, Chad Michael Busto, 43, was arrested for
This shit is genuinely real. I thought, oh shit. Oh shit. Okay.
trespassing at a New York Fashion Week event, where he allegedly entered a dressing room and shouted his desire to marry actress Emma Watson. He was charged with criminal trespass and disorderly conduct. Busto has a history of similar incidents, including attempting to approach actress Drew Barrymore. In June 2024, he was arrested in Oxford, UK, after seeking information about Watson at the university where she was studying. Authorities detained him on suspicion of stalking and later released him under
Again, how did he get in?
investigation. It started as just another quiet evening, the kind where you don't expect anything out of the ordinary. Brittany wasn't home that night. Her house in Thousand Oaks was peaceful, bathed in soft twilight, the kind of serene setting that hides the lurking shadows of danger. None of us could have imagined what was about to happen. The first sign of trouble came as a strange, jittery notification on my phone. Jason Alexander was live streaming. The name made my stomach churn. Jason, Brittany's ex-husband for those fleeting 55 hours back in 2004, had always
55 hours? Bruh. Fuck?
been a ghost of her past, but lately he'd transformed into something far darker, a relentless shadow that refused to let go. I clicked on the notification, my curiosity quickly giving way to dread. The live stream flickered to life, and there he was, standing outside Brittany's sprawling home. His face was gaunt, his eyes glassy with a mix of obsession and mania. The shaky camera panned over the front yard, its neatly trimmed hedges and immaculate walkway. His voice, a guttural whisper, came through the feed. "I'm here for you, Brittany," he said, his tone dripping with an eerie sense of purpose. "I'm coming inside." He moved toward the house, the camera jittering as he walked. My chest tightened. The way he moved, calculated yet frantic, reminded me of a predator stalking its prey. He reached the front door and jiggled the handle. Locked. His frustration was palpable, a sharp exhale of breath followed by muttered curses. Then he circled the house, the camera capturing glimpses of the darkened windows and the faint reflections of his gaunt figure. He found a window. I'll never forget the sound that followed, the sharp, piercing crack of glass shattering. The live stream trembled as he climbed through, his breath ragged, his voice a mix of exhilaration and delusion. "I'm here," he murmured. "This is where I'm supposed to be." The view shifted as he moved inside. The pristine, polished floors gleamed under the soft glow of recessed lighting. The silence of the house.
All I see is evidence. That's all I'm looking at. It's evidence. You're doing time, buddy.
Was deafening, broken.
Criminal trespass, stalking, breaking and entering, forceful entry. You're doing time.
only by the creak of his footsteps and the occasional unsettling chuckle that escaped his lips. He wandered through the living room, his hands brushing over furniture like he was claiming it as his own. When he reached the staircase, the tension became unbearable. Step by step, he ascended, the camera bouncing with each movement. "Are you hiding from me, Brittany?" he called, his voice echoing in the empty space. "You don't have to hide. I'm here for you." He entered her bedroom. The camera lingered on the bed, perfectly made with crisp, white sheets. He approached it slowly, his hand trembling as he reached out to touch the fabric. "This is where she sleeps," he whispered, his tone almost reverent. Then he turned to the closet. My heart raced as I watched him slide open the doors, revealing rows of neatly hung clothes. He ran his fingers over the fabrics, his breath hitching. "So close," he said. "I can feel her." It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them, a sick mix of awe and possession. The invasion was intimate and grotesque. This wasn't just a house, it was Brittany's sanctuary, and he was violating it in the most personal way possible. But he didn't stop there. Jason's footsteps creaked as he walked into the adjoining bathroom. The live stream showed him running his hands along the marble countertops and pausing at the sink. He picked up a loofah, pressing it to his face and inhaling deeply. "She used this," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "This was hers." He opened the medicine cabinet next, rifling through it.
Damn, nigga, how you know she ain't had no gas up in there, man? You moving like the feds, but you still gonna go to him. Like, god damn.
Its contents. Bottles clinked as he pulled out a perfume bottle, spraying it into the air and walking through the mist like it was some twisted blessing. He giggled, a high-pitched, unsettling sound that sent chills down my spine. The camera jerked again as he turned back toward the bedroom, his eyes scanning for more intimate relics. He picked up a pillow from the bed, clutching it tightly to his chest, as if it were a stand-in for Brittany herself. "I'll wait for you here," he murmured, sinking to the floor beside the bed, rocking slightly as he hugged the pillow. The livestream audience exploded with comments. "What is this guy doing? Someone call the cops. This is insane." And then the screen jolted. A sudden sound shattered the tension. Voices, sharp and authoritative. Brittany's security team had arrived. The camera tilted wildly as Jason tried to run, his breathing frantic. The feed cut off abruptly, leaving a suffocating silence in its wake. Later, I learned the police had arrested him on charges of trespassing, vandalism, and stalking. Brittany wasn't home, thank God, but the damage was done. The footage of that night stayed with me, haunting my thoughts. Jason's actions weren't just terrifying, they were a chilling reminder of the thin line between fandom and obsession. Even now, every time I see a live stream pop up on my phone, I feel a pang of unease. That night wasn't just an invasion of Brittany's privacy, it was a glimpse into the darkness of fixation, the kind that doesn't just watch from afar, but forces its way in, leaving fear and violation in its wake. Jason Alexander, Britney Spears' ex-husband, was arrested in June 2022.
I don't know either one of them. I've heard of Britney Spears' name, but I just never seen her face before. I don't really listen. I'm black and from the South. I don't really listen to Britney Spears like that. I feel like they both may or may not have been on drugs. I don't know.
For stalking and trespassing at her California home on her wedding day to Sam Asghari. Alexander live-streamed himself attempting to crash the wedding, gaining unauthorized entry and claiming he was invited. He was subdued by security before reaching Spears. Authorities charged him with trespassing, stalking, vandalism, and battery. Alexander had a history of erratic behavior and had previously shown obsessive tendencies toward Spears. He was convicted of aggravated trespassing and sentenced to 64 days in jail. Spears and her team heightened security measures following the incident. It was New Year's Eve 2017, and the energy backstage at Katy Perry's Witness tour was electric. The crowd's screams were so loud they made the walls hum. I've been hired to assist her security detail, a last-minute assignment and a prestigious one.
You know what? I'll tell my story. I did security for Mulatto once. It was lit. I couldn't take no pictures though. Hold on. All I can tell y'all is the date. And I gotta scroll through her Instagram, so give me a minute. Give me a minute. It was her and City Girls performing one time. I had on a ski mask. Black dry fit shirt, black joggers, and black Nikes in case I had to step on shit. I call them the step on shit ones. Unless she deleted it. April. No. No, gang, she deleted it. It was her and City Girls. I forgot what the fuck City Girls was wearing, but I remember a lot of she had on a pink, not a pink, but a blue full body suit with some like holes cut all over. That was fat too.
This was Katy Perry, after all, one of the biggest stars in the world. And while her fans were known for being passionate, tonight they seemed harmless enough. At least that's what I told myself. The concert itself was a blur of lights, music, and cheering fans. I stayed near the stage, scanning the crowd for anything unusual. That's when I first noticed him. He was tall, in his mid to late 30s, and dressed too plainly to be part of the glitter-covered audience. His face was pale, his eyes dark and intense. While everyone else danced and screamed, he stood completely still. He wasn't watching the show, he was watching her. His lips moved constantly, whispering something I couldn't hear. "See that guy?" I said to another guard, nodding toward him.
Yeah, creepy, but harmless, right?
"Maybe," I said, but something about him sent a chill through me. He wasn't just watching her, he was fixating. When the show ended and the crowd began to disperse, I felt a wave of relief. The man had disappeared, and I figured he'd gone home like everyone else. But as the crew started packing up and Katie's team moved backstage, a strange feeling settled over me. It was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes the hairs on your neck stand up. I was doing a final sweep of the hallway leading to Katie's dressing room when I saw it, a smear of red lipstick on the wall. It trailed downward into a jagged streak, ending in a small handprint. My stomach twisted. I radioed another guard, but before they could respond, I heard a faint noise. It was coming from the dressing room. I pushed the door open cautiously, my heart pounding. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Her makeup was laid out neatly on the vanity, her costume hung up on the rack, and the faint smell of roses from the bouquets filled the air. But then I saw him. He was sitting in the corner of the room, half hidden in the shadows, his head tilted to an unnatural angle. His hand rested on one of her brushes, stroking it slowly, almost lovingly. His lips moved again, whispering words I couldn't make out. My voice caught in my throat as I took a step inside. "Hey," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "You're not supposed to be here." He didn't react. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the vanity mirror. That's when I saw the words scrawled in bright red lipstick. "She belongs to me." "Stand up," I ordered, taking another step toward him. My hand hovered over the baton at my side.
What you gonna do with a baton? Boy, you ain't supposed to be hovering over that Glock, man. What are you doing?
Finally, he moved. Slowly, deliberately, he stood, his eyes never leaving the mirror. "She's waiting for me," he said softly. "She called me here." "You need to leave," I said, my voice.
Awaken to a world of wonder in Final Fantasy XIV Online.
He need to leave, but you need...
Voice firmer now.
He need to leave, but you need a Glock for next time, man.
I reached for my radio, but before I could signal, he lunged at me. The force of his attack sent us crashing into the vanity, shattering the glass surface. Perfume bottles and makeup were scattered across the
If you would have had a Glock, that wouldn't have happened.
floor. He grabbed a shard of glass and swung wildly, his eyes burning with a terrifying intensity. "You don't understand!" he screamed, his voice raw and desperate. "She's mine! She's always been mine!" I fought to restrain him, but his strength was unreal. It was as if pure obsession had given him power. He clawed and thrashed.
That
his breath
retard
caught
strength
against my face as he muttered Katie's name over and over. Just as he broke free of my grip, 2 other guards burst into the room, tackling him to the ground. Even then, he didn't stop fighting. He didn't stop screaming. The police arrived minutes later. They found a notebook in his jacket pocket, its pages filled with rambling letters addressed to Katie. They weren't love notes. They were fantasies, dark, detailed fantasies about he'd rescue her, how they'd start a life together. He'd been following her for weeks, showing up at 6 different concerts, sneaking backstage each time. But what made my blood run cold was the last page. It wasn't just a plan, it was a promise. Written in shaky black ink were the words, "Tonight is the night we'll finally be together." Beneath it, he'd drawn a crude sketch of her dressing room, down to the last detail. As the police dragged him away, he turned to me, his face twisted into a grin. "You can't stop Destiny," he said. "She'll come for me, you'll see." For weeks after, I couldn't shake his words. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, his smile, the red lipstick on the mirror. I stayed in security, but I was never the same. Every fan in a crowd became a potential threat. Every open door made my pulse quicken. And every time I heard Katy Perry's music, I thought of him, of the notebook, of the words he'd written in lipstick. She belongs to me.
All that because of that song last Friday night. That's it. That's it.
Joel Jersky, a 37-year-old Polish man, was arrested.
Yup, he looks the part. He looks the part.
Arrested for stalking pop star Katy Perry during her concert tour in December 2017. He reportedly attended 6 of her concerts in different cities across the U.S. and made multiple attempts to approach her. Jersky was caught at Miami's American Airlines Arena after attempting to force his way backstage. Authorities found he had a history of obsessive behavior, including plans to enter Perry's hotel. He was charged with aggravated stalking and trespassing. Perry's team reported feeling unsafe due to his persistent actions. Jersky later claimed he wanted to meet and talk with her. It was just another Tuesday night, and I was sitting on my porch, lighting a cigarette after a long, exhausting day. The street was quiet, unusually so. A soft breeze carried the faint hum of distant traffic, and for a moment, it felt like the city was finally giving me a break. I leaned back, exhaling a cloud of smoke, my mind drifting as I watched the occasional headlights pass by. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Reggie walking down the street. He was heading towards his sister's place like he always did around this time. Reggie was a familiar face in the neighborhood, the kind of guy who'd nod and say hello even if he didn't know you well. He had this quiet, gentle way about him, the type of man who wouldn't harm a fly. Tonight, he looked the same as ever, just another guy heading home. I took another drag and glanced up the street again. That's when I saw them. 5 girls, maybe teenagers, walking a few steps behind him. They were laughing, pushing each other, like kids do. Nothing about it seemed strange at first, but as they got closer, I caught something in their tone, a sharpness, an edge that made me sit up a little straighter. Still, I shrugged it off. Kids are kids, right? Reggie turned down the alley that cut through his sister's block. It was a shortcut everyone in the neighborhood knew. I'd taken it myself plenty of times. The girls followed him, their laughter echoing louder now. Something about it made the hair on my arms stand up. It wasn't the kind of laughter you'd expect from kids. It was cruel. I stayed where I was, watching. At first, it sounded like nothing more than playful teasing.
Hey, old man!
One of them shouted. Reggie turned, confused. He said something, but I couldn't make it out.
We're bored.
Another girl said, a wicked grin spreading across her face. Reggie tried to walk faster, but they were on him in seconds. One of them grabbed his bag and yanked it out of his hand, spilling its contents onto the pavement. He protested, reaching down to gather his things, but another girl shoved him hard. He stumbled back against the wall, his hands raised defensively. "Leave me alone," he said, his voice trembling.
Or what?
I'm telling y'all, this is not gonna happen if you keep a Glock. It's not going to happen at all.
The tallest girl sneered. Before he could answer, she slapped him across the face.
Big Glock. That's what I'm saying.
Hard. The sound cracked through the alley like a gunshot. Reggie staggered, and that's when it began. They swarmed him, fists flying. One girl grabbed his belt and yanked it free, whipping it across his back with brutal force.
This game, you're not ready for it.
Another kicked his legs out from under him, sending him crashing to the ground. He tried to crawl away, but they didn't let up. One of them grabbed a chunk of broken concrete and slammed it into his already broken body over and over until he stopped moving. The sound of it was sickening, a dull thud that I can still hear in my nightmares.
This is too easy.
One of them said, laughing. She stomped on his chest, her sneaker leaving a bloody print on his shirt. Another girl knelt beside him, pulling at his pockets, searching for something.
I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. What young boy said, stomp him in his face. I left him with my Nike sign. Free Lil Meechie off the line. You know I'm big slime. We ain't lose no draw. You know boys know I'm about my... I'm sorry.
Something worth taking. When she didn't find anything, she spat on him. Reggie's groans grew quieter with every blow. His face was a mess of blood and swelling, barely recognizable. They didn't stop. They kicked him in the ribs, his head, anywhere they could reach. One girl stood back, recording the whole thing on her phone, her voice shrill as she egged the others on.
Hit him harder. Make it count.
I wanted to scream, to run over and stop them, but my legs wouldn't move. My hands were shaking so badly that I nearly dropped my cigarette. All I could do was watch, frozen in horror, as they beat him to death. When it was over, they stood over his body, panting and laughing. One of them tossed the belt onto him like it was some kind of trophy. Another one kicked him lightly, testing if he'd move.
Let's go.
The tall girl said, wiping her hands on her jeans. They walked off, their laughter fading into the distance, leaving Reggie crumpled and lifeless on the cold concrete. I sat there for what felt like hours, unable to move, unable to think. Eventually, I forced myself to call 911. My voice shook as I told the operator what had happened, but I couldn't bring myself to say that I'd seen it all and I'd done nothing to stop it. The paramedics came, the cops came. They covered Reggie's body with a sheet and started asking questions. I stayed in the shadows, watching, unable to face the reality of what I'd witnessed. In the days that followed, the video surfaced. It was everywhere. The girls' faces were plastered on every news channel, their mugshots a chilling reminder of how young they were. People called them monsters, demons, and maybe they were. But all I could think about was how easily it had happened, how they'd turned a man's life into a game just because they were bored. In October 2023, 5 girls aged 12 to 15 attacked and killed 64-year-old Reggie Brown in Washington, D.C., reportedly out of boredom. They chased Brown, a disabled man, and brutally beat him in an alley, causing fatal blunt force trauma. The assault was recorded by one of the girls. In December 2024, a 13-year-old girl was sentenced to confinement until age 21 for her role in the murder. Other participants received varying sentences, including a 15-year-old who was sentenced to 3 years in prison after pleading guilty to assault with a
3?
dangerous weapon.
Just 3 years. Just 3 years. Man, let that junk have been in the South, Georgia, Texas, Florida. Shawty getting life. No possibility of parole. Shawty, they heard you say you were bored. By DC, I need to start coming up there and committing some crimes. That's what I'm finna start doing. 3 years? I don't care how short it is 15. They would have tried her like an adult down south. Bro, that's crazy. R.I.P. my boy Reggie, man. But look, man. That's going to do it for this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. The skit channel is somewhere. It's somewhere around here. It's somewhere around the way. Go check out the new skit, man. With that one coworker who has no goals. Send me stuff to react to on Instagram. YRN.JJJ. I told y'all I was gonna get 2 skits to y'all in the same week. I did that. Coworkers who have no goals and Drake and Kendrick. I did that for y'all. You know what I'm saying? I keep my word. I did Kendrick Drake after Kendrick performed at halftime part 1 and then part 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, comment, subscribe. Anything else, turn on your notifications. Alright, deuces.
From a young nigga to a grown man, ball in my hands, I control it. Fuck all them other guys, he ain't wanna mind. Get in my way, I run them over.